Stargirl's second episode is now out on both DC Universe and CW, and I have to say it was really, really good. I already said in my review for the pilot that it's my new favorite show, but then this episode just took it to the next level, because I really liked the first episode, but I loved this episode. There was so much going on, so much story set up, and just so many good Easter eggs and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the episode and break down everything that happened. So we start off the episode exactly where the last episode started off, where Courtney was trying to escape from Brainwave, and then this giant robot showed up, and it's Pat. So Pat has this robot, and when they get back to the garage, he explains to her basically everything that's going on, and we get a lot of this in the show. Explanations from Pat to Courtney, and he basically tells her that this robot, he built it, and it's a prototype, and he built it after Sylvester died, because if there was no Starman and no JSA, there needed to be some kind of hero, but he never actually used it, and it was just the prototype, so this was the first time he had ever used it. That's why later he ends up testing it out and upgrading it, because he knows that he's going to need to start using it now. But he also mentions that Brainwave is a very powerful threat. He killed a bunch of his friends, including Johnny Thunder, Hawkman, and Hawkgirl. But our man, who we thought died in the first episode at the beginning, apparently somehow survived. And then he went to hunt down the JSA after, that whole event. But then turns out he died a couple weeks later, both he and his wife, in a car crash. Yeah, it was just an accident. Yeah, I think it was more than just an accident. But later in the episode, we see Brainwave, and throughout the episode, I'm just going to call him Brainwave, because there's Henry. His name's Henry, but then his son is also Henry, so I'm just going to call his son Henry, and then him Brainwave, because it's just easier. So Brainwave, he is testing his son to see if his son has powers like him. And turns out he doesn't, at least not yet, but you can kind of see foreshadowing here, and how his son is going to become Brainwave Jr., basically, at some point in the future. Then we also see Courtney, who goes, she's at school, and she goes in, I assume it's the home ec room. I've only seen a home ec room in, shows and movies and stuff, because, well, we don't have one of those at our school. But she brought Starman's suit, and she basically destroys it. I mean, honestly, that's kind of rude. You destroy that dude's suit. At least get your own. I mean, that's what she's doing. She's changing his suit into hers. But, I mean, why you gotta ruin his to do that? But I really like that it showed the process of her making her suit. And I thought that was pretty cool. But then we have lunchtime at school again, with Beth, of course, being peppy as ever. The guy was not there. I don't know his name yet, but he's going to end up being the new Arrow Man. But he wasn't there. But Yvette, whatever her name is, she was there. Yolanda, that's her name. So she was there at lunch. But Beth is having a Zoom call or FaceTime with her mother for lunch. And then turns out Brainwave works with her mother. So you can see Courtney on the screen in the video call, because she's like, oh, this is Courtney. And you think Brainwave is going to look over and see it, but then he doesn't. But then he does hear them say something about an open house. So then he's like, oh, I'll go to this open house, because this girl goes to the school, because he found her school ID. So I'll find her there if I go. So then he goes, and we see basically half the Injustice Society there, and basically confirmation that the gym owner and the gym teacher are Sportsmaster and Tigress, because you can see that they're married here. They have a kid who is Artemis. If you're a Young Justice fan, then you know who that is. But it basically confirms that they're Sportsmaster and Tigress. But then Courtney ends up seeing Brainwave, and then he sees her, so they're both hunting for each other, but then when she gets spotted, she tries to escape, but then he corners her in the hallway, and there's this huge confrontation, and this is the tensest, I don't know if that's a word, but it's the most tense moment of the episode, And it's this big confrontation, and he basically says, meet me back here at midnight and bring the staff, or I'll give your mother a stroke and kill her. And I mean, he's not kidding about that either. Like, Pat even reiterates that. Like, he'll actually do that, and he doesn't care. Like, oh, she's dead. Oh, well, that was fun. So then Pat decides that he's going to go out to stop Brainwave, because he can't just let Courtney go out there and do it on her own. So he's going to go do it, and then he gets his butt kicked. He loses this fight. It really shows how overpowered Brainwave is, and I really like this fight battle scene, because you really see how powerful Brainwave is here. Because he takes out Stripe, or he's not called Stripe yet, but Pat's robot, so easily. But then, of course, Courtney, she realizes, he needs my help, so I gotta go help him. So then she puts on her suit, she basically becomes Stargirl, and then she flies over there on her staff, and she, rides it like a surfboard. And honestly, that's really cool, but I don't know how she can do that, with balancing issues and stuff, because it's the same thing that I've always wondered about, witches, how they ride broomsticks. How do you balance on that thing? And then the thing that makes it even harder here is, witches, they, sit down and ride it. But Courtney, she was, standing up on it like a surfboard and flying there. But that's what makes it even cooler, because it's, so impossible. But she shows up and she's like, I'm Stargirl. And, okay, so she named herself. She's Stargirl now. And then she starts to lose the fight, and she starts getting tortured by Brainwave. And I like how he mentions, I miss doing this. This was so much fun. Because, he's, making her bleed out of her ears, and it's nasty, but painful also. But then she escapes, kinda. And then she, powers up, because Pat is able to distract him with this bright light. So then she takes him out, kicks his butt, and then the staff does some weird stuff, and it fries his brain or something. It just goes zappy zappy, and then fries his brain, and you think at first he's dead, but he's not, because then he's in the hospital later, and for now he's alive. But then you see his son there, he's upset, and then this is even more foreshadowing to see that his son Henry is going to become the next Brainwave in this new version of the Injustice Society. And it makes sense, especially because even though he didn't have his powers earlier when he was being tested by his father, maybe Brainwave Sr. will die, and then that will unlock his powers. Because there's always similar events like that when, somebody loses a loved one or something. It, unlocks their true potential because they're feeling so many emotions. So maybe his powers will be unlocked after he feels the pain of losing his father or something. And then he'll become Brainwave Jr., basically. And then we do get a final scene with Courtney and Pat, with basically she making him her official sidekick and giving him a new name, because he was Stripesy when he was just in the striped shirt, but now he's got a robot, so he's cooler, so he's got to have a cooler name. So now he's just called Stripe, and that was the episode title as well. But then we get the best ending to the episode, the best part of the episode, by the way, the arrival of Icicle. So you don't know that he's Icicle yet until the last part of the scene. But he shows up, he goes to the building, and then turns out this is the headquarters of the Injustice Society. And then you see this vault door, and then Solomon Grundy comes to the door, and you can see his face through the cage a little bit. And I'm super excited to see the full-on CGI version of this. But also, I really like that we saw him here and how they explained it, because the other day I was just thinking about how 10 years ago when the Injustice Society killed all of the Justice Society of America, they disbanded, and then they all went to live their own lives. They got their own families and stuff. But how would Solomon Grundy go off and live his own life? Where did he go? So apparently they've been keeping him captive here in this vault, and I guess he's just willing to do whatever they want him to do, and yeah. So we get that tease with Grundy, and we're definitely going to see more of him here. But then Icicle, he walks into the main area of the IJSA headquarters, and we see this painting of all of the Injustice Society members. And I'm going to do a quick breakdown here. So going from left to right, of course, the person you can see standing there is Icicle. But then in the actual painting itself, on the very left, I mean, you can barely see it. You probably can't see it in this photo anyway. But Dragon King is standing there in the shadows. And a character you saw last episode and a little bit this episode, Cindy, who's a cheerleader and Henry's girlfriend, she is actually the daughter of the Dragon King. So we'll see her have a bigger role in the rest of the season. So we can see Dragon King there, but not really. Then the guy in the top hat there is the Wizard, who, like I mentioned, was in the DC Universe version of this episode, but I didn't get to see that. Then we see Tigress, who's the gym teacher, like I mentioned, wife of Sportsmaster. But then before we get into Sportsmaster, right above them and behind them, you can see some glasses there. And I'm pretty sure that is Shade. And I had no idea he was going to be on this show, but I'm really excited to see where this character goes, because we haven't seen him yet. But one of the things that I was wondering from last episode is during that opening battle, when we saw Dr. Midnight, the guy with the goggles and like the green and red suit, when he got dragged away, it was like this big black liquidy hand came over him and dragged him away. And I was wondering which villain did that, because that didn't really fit the power set of any of these other villains. But it does fit with Shade, and that's the kind of thing that Shade could do. So I think that we're getting Shade in this season. And then, of course, Sportsmaster, who's the gym owner, Larry Crusher Croc, and he was training Pat in this episode also, but little does he know he's actually a villain and member of the Injustice Society. Then, of course, we have Icicle Sr. We will see Icicle Jr. in this season as well, and I think he actually will become Icicle. So we're going to have a father-son Icicle duo, unless the father dies, but that's always possible. Then, of course, there's Brainwave, who's a brain surgeon, Henry King Sr., who may die, possibly, but he's in the hospital right now. Then we have the Gambler in this purple hat, apparently also something else that was in the DC Universe episode. He works with Courtney's mother, and we actually saw a little bit of him in the first episode when her mother was getting a tour of her new workplace, and you saw these two guys. I believe both of those are actually the Wizard and the Gambler. I know that definitely the Gambler was one of the two. I'm not sure if the other one was the Wizard, but that was the Gambler there. So we saw him the last episode, and we keep seeing these little, like, cameos, kinda, and, like, hidden characters. So that's something you really have to look out for when you're watching this show, and one of the things I really enjoy about this the most is that there's these hidden characters, and you gotta figure out, like, oh, who's that? Is that going to be an important character and stuff like that? Like there's a janitor in last episode that kept looking at Courtney, and maybe he is a surviving member of the Justice Society of America. That's always a possibility. But anyway, our last Injustice Society member over here off to the far right, and it's starting to get confusing saying Injustice Society, Justice Society, and all that stuff. But this last member is the Fiddler, who is actually the principal's husband, or maybe her son, because her son, we saw, she was embarrassing him at the open house, but in the comics, he becomes the Fiddler, but we see here that this is the original version of the Injustice Society, so I assume that this would be his father, and then maybe the son will take on the role of the Fiddler in the future, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, so this is the Injustice Society, and then we get this final shot of the episode with Icicle and Gambler. So Gambler was already there in the headquarters, and then Icicle just went to meet up with him. And the next episode is actually titled Icicle, so Courtney and Pat definitely have to be on the lookout for these two, because they are coming after them even though they don't know it yet. But it's definitely going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see where this series goes in the 3rd episode. Like I said, this is my new favorite show, especially compared to the recent seasons of all the shows. Better than The Flash, better than Supergirl, better than Batwoman. I mean, it's just so good. And like the CGI, the music, I have to reiterate that from last episode. I love the music in this. I just love everything about this show, especially compared to other CW shows. Better story, better characters, better CGI, music, like I said. But yeah, what did you guys like the most about this episode, and what do you think will happen in the next episode of Stargirl? Also, let me know in the comments if you spotted any other hidden characters that could be important, because, like I said, there are some Justice Society of America members who did somehow survive that attack in the beginning of the 1st episode, so they could be hidden in these episodes, like I said, with the janitor. So yeah, let me know if you see any more hidden characters, and yeah. So if you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. And smash the subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.